This keynote today is going to share with us on the theme how to create an amazing customer experience. So if you're talking about amazing customer experience, we welcome the Chief Amazement Officer from Shepard Presentations, Mr. Shep Hyken, who's going to be joining us. And he is a customer service and experience expert and the Chief Amazement Officer of Shepard Presentations. He works with companies and organizations who want to build loyal relationships with their customers and employees. He's also the creator of the Customer Focus, a customer service training program which helps clients develop a customer service culture and a loyalty mindset. So everybody, this is going to be a high energy presentation because he's well known for that, which combines important information with entertainment. There's going to be humor and magic. Love that, right? So to create an exciting program for his audiences wherever he meets them all across the globe, today he's meeting all of us right here with a loud round of applause. And do it, everybody. Get your hands up. Make sure that I feel the energy you're sending me from your home space. Everybody, are you ready? All right, let's put our hands together right now for Mr. Shep Hyken, Chief Amazement Officer, Shepard Presentations, who joins us to take forward this first keynote address. Welcome, Shep.
Hello everybody, it's Shep Hyken here, customer service and experience expert, and I am very excited to be here today at the Customer Fest Show 2021. We're going to talk today about how to create an amazing customer experience. Now, amazement is within the reach of everyone, and you don't have to deliver an over-the-top, a blow-me-away experience. You can, by the way, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if you want to be seen as amazing, well, you'll see in just a moment. Creating amazement is not only within the grasp of every company, it's within the grasp of every employee in every company to make that happen. But first, a couple of important stats and facts from our 2020 Achieving Customer Amazement Research Report that you need to consider. So last year, we surveyed over 1,000 consumers and found that 96% of customers will leave because of bad customer service. Now, that's nothing new, although the stats seem to creep up higher and higher every year. Now, of those 96%, 60% said they are very or extremely willing to do so. The reason? Well, our customers' expectations are higher than ever, and they expect the brands and companies they do business with to deliver. So keeping that in mind, let's go ahead and officially get started with this important statement, and that is this: our customers are smarter than ever before. They no longer are going to compare you to a direct competitor. You are now going to be compared to the best service that your customers have ever had. And that could be Amazon is a wonderful company as an example. Many people love Amazon. They love how easy it is to do business with them. Or it could be the restaurant down the street that the person is so friendly and engaging, and you're thinking, why can't everybody be as nice as this server that always takes care of me? Or how about if you're in the B2B world, business to business, you're talking to the inside sales rep of a company and you're thinking, wow, this person knows me and my business so well. They're so helpful. Wouldn't it be nice if everybody were like that? Well, this is what's happening. The bar is being raised by rock star companies and people within those companies, and they are making it harder for the companies that I would consider customer service laggards to keep up with. The good news for a customer is that we're smart, we know what we want, and guess what? Companies are starting to make progress. Even the laggards are recognizing how important it is to deliver a great service experience. So, recognize our customers. The new benchmark is not what a competitor is doing that might be better. It's what anybody is doing. So with that in mind, let's talk about customer amazement and this concept that I have called moments of truth. And actually, that concept comes from Jan Carlson, the former president of Scandinavian Airlines. And he said the moment of truth in business is any time a customer comes into contact with any aspect of that business and has an opportunity to form an impression. Now, I first heard about this concept when I started reading lots of business magazines in the 1980s, and Jan Carlson eventually came out with a book titled Moments of Truth, which he very clearly explained what all of this was about. And I took this concept and I said, this is amazing. This could be the cornerstone of what all customer service is about. And we'll get to my concepts about this in just a moment. But let me explain what Jan Carlson did. He went into an airplane hangar. In every city, they had a presence. President of Scandinavian Airlines, by the way, at a time when the airline was not doing well. And he said to all of the employees, and that could be flight attendants, gate agents, people at the desk, the people taking reservations, the people behind the scenes, checking bags underneath the ground that are moving the bags around and moving them out to airplanes. Here's what he said. We must manage these moments of truth, because if we do, our customers will want to fly on us again. We have to make them positive. And then he said, if you're not dealing directly with a customer, you're probably supporting somebody that is, or you're doing something behind the scenes. So here's some examples of moments of truth that the customer experiences at an airline, or a passenger, if you will. They make a reservation, main moment of truth. Day of departure, you check your bags at the curb. Another main moment of truth, you go inside of the ticket counter. Maybe you're walking to the gate, you see a flight attendant, and they smile at you. Now, that's not a main moment of truth, but remember, every interaction counts, even the small ones. So a smile and a wave, it adds to the experience. The person at the gate takes care of you, the flight attendant, you're greeted at your destination, and then you pick up your bags at the baggage carousel. And if everything goes well on this journey that the customer is taking, then that customer is going to want to fly on that airline again. So that's an example of what I call touch points or top line moments of truth. Then behind the scenes, there's lots of moments of truth that are happening there. They are driving those touch points. I call those impact points. For example, if I check my bag at the curb on the day of departure when I'm flying on the airline, and I see that bag go down that conveyor belt, what happens is a few hours later I land and that baggage carousel, there's my bag. Well, that's not magic that made it go from point A to point B, from one city to another city. No. People behind the scenes, probably about 8 to 10 people, actually touched my bag. The bag goes down the conveyor belt. Somebody looks at the tag on the bag, scans it, makes sure it gets on the right cart. The cart then is driven out to the airplane. 2 or 3 people are putting that onto the airplane. And then the whole thing reverses when the plane lands and they have to get it to the baggage carousel. So lots of people touch the bag. Here's the interesting thing. None of those people will ever see my smiling face. No, they don't ever see the passenger, but they know that if they don't do their job, they're going to impact that passenger's experience. And here's my point. Behind the scenes, these impact points, they're moments of truth that are very important. If you're not actually dealing directly with the customer, you're probably supporting or doing something behind the scenes that does. And if you don't do your job, the experience might not be as good as it could be on the outside. So Jan Carlson said, manage the moments of truth, make them good versus bad. Now, here are my names for these moments of truth, and this is we start to Shepmatize these concepts. Number 1, bad moments of truth. They are called, in my mind, moments of misery, and we want to avoid them. They're complaints, they're problems, they're things that don't go well, and you fix those. You have to rebound, and you have to come back and make them right to restore the confidence of the customer. So we try to avoid moments of misery, but they're going to happen, and the way they're managed, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, is how we take this to the next level. Now, second type of moment of truth, and that is the one that's in the middle. It's average or satisfactory. Mediocre, if you will. Now, Jan Carlson didn't talk about this, but mediocre, well, this is my name for it, a moment of mediocrity. That's average, okay, just all right. And by the way, customers don't complain when they're satisfied. No, they complain when there's a problem. So if you are in the zone of just being average, you're not going to hear from customers who aren't happy with you. But then we go to the next level, and that's the positive moment of truth. And that's what we call a moment of magic. And that's anything better than average. Now, once in a while, it'll be over the top. And by the way, here's what I think is so important for you to understand, especially as it comes to customer amazement. If you want to be seen as amazing, you do not need to be over the top, blow me away, best service I've ever had in my life. No, what you need to be is better than average, but all of the time. Better than average all of the time. And that means people will say, I love doing business with them because they're always friendly. They're always responsive. They always call me back quickly. They're always so knowledgeable. Even when there's a problem, I know I can always count on them to take care of me. So that word always is crucial, followed by something positive. And if you notice that last statement, even if there's a problem, I know I can always count on them. If there's a moment of misery and you manage it well, then the customer says, wow, they've restored my confidence. I can always count on them. And guess what happens when they know they can always count on you when there's a problem? They'll tell you about the problem because they know you're going to fix it. So just to reemphasize a few ideas, the moment of truth goes one of three ways. A moment of misery, which is a complaint, a problem. The moment of mediocrity, which is average or satisfactory, just okay. Or the moment of magic, which is better than average. And by the way, once in a while when there's a problem, you get to go above and beyond, or maybe you overhear something so you recognize an opportunity to do something special for your customer. So let me emphasize this. How much better than average do you have to be? And this is where we get into the whole customer amazement concept. Better than average. Jan Carlson talked about positive moments of truth. Well, here's another gentleman, Horst Schulze. Horst Schulze, the first president and co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain. And I had the wonderful opportunity to spend time interviewing him on 2 occasions. And what a wonderful guy. And he's one of my customer service heroes because he's figured it out. And he said, and I've always believed, by the way, in the above average, a little above average all the time. And he said, if you're just a little above average all of the time, you'll create an iconic brand like the Ritz-Carlton. And I go, okay, I'm in alignment with this most amazing gentleman. And then I asked them, Mr. Schulze, how much more than average do you have to be? And he quickly said, you just have to be 10% better than average. 10% better than average. He says, and if you are consistently at least 10% better than average, you'll be seen as an amazing, iconic brand like the Ritz-Carlton. Now think about that for a moment. People will say when they go to the Ritz, they're always friendly. They always smile. They always recognize me when I walk by. That's part of the training that they have. The Ritz has created these standards that are always followed by something positive. And that's what the best companies in the world have done. Consistency and predictability, always above average. All right, so we have this idea of the moment of truth, misery, and magic. And recognize, by the way, that that moment of misery is an opportunity to create a moment of magic when you take a problem and you turn it around and make it right. And I'm going to give you a specific way to manage a moment of misery in just a moment. But what I'd like to do in the short time that we have remaining is give you a number of tactics, if you will, or strategies on how to manage that moment of truth and create that moment of magic and create customer amazement. So here we go. Number 1, real simple, manage first impressions. And that could be the first time you meet somebody, the 500th time you see somebody, but what you're doing is you're setting the tone for whatever interaction is to follow. That's number 1. It's real simple. Manage first impressions. And by the way, it could be the way you dress for success, the way you walk into a meeting, your body language, your facial expression. And remember, how do you answer the phone? Do you welcome people into a conversation, or do you say, what do you want? And maybe you don't say, what do you want, but it comes off that way. It sounds like that to the customer. So manage the first impression. Number 2, demonstrate knowledge. 2 types of knowledge. Number 1, knowledge of your product. Knowledge of whatever it is that you sell. People expect you to be knowledgeable about what you sell and what your company does. Number 2, be knowledgeable about the customer. So if you have insight as to who that customer is, if the customer's bought from you before, if you have records about the customer's past history, use that to your advantage. The customers really appreciate when you know their business. So number 1, manage first impressions. Number 2, demonstrate knowledge, and that's knowledge of your business and expertise and knowledge of the customer. Number 3, act like an owner. Now, you don't have to be an owner to act like an owner, or you could say act like a leader. Here's the point. There was a gentleman, he was 18 years old. His name was Clark in Colorado. He worked at a pizza restaurant. And one day, after doing one of these presentations live, he came up to me and he said, Shep, I've got to tell you a story. The other night, I was working at the pizza restaurant that I work at, and one of the tables, somebody there asked if I was the owner of the restaurant. And I thought, why would they ask me if I was the owner? By the way, He looked like he was maybe a little bit older than 18, but didn't look like he was old enough to own a business like this restaurant that he worked in. But this is what he told me. He asked, why would you ask that? And the response was, you are taking such great care of us. We thought you had to be the owner, or at least the owner's son. And he beamed with pride, and he realized at that moment he wanted to be so good that every guest that he worked with, every guest that he served, would think that he was that good, that he was the owner of the restaurant. Now, a couple of things were happening. Number one, he liked the owner. He liked his boss, who was the manager of the restaurant and owned the restaurant. That's important. Number two, the boss empowered Clark to do what it takes to take care of that guest. So the idea behind it is you have to be a boss or a leader that your people will admire, and you act as a role model. And number two, empower them to take care of the customer. So act like an owner. Number four, think like your customer. Understand your customer. Now, this is all about communication, because sometimes people will say one thing and mean something completely different. And I'll give you an example of this. And I guess the best tactic to make sure that you don't miscommunicate with your customer. And by the way, miscommunication is the worst moment of misery that you could possibly have with somebody, because people will say, I don't like doing business with them because they don't understand me. It's easy to fix something that's broken. Somebody brings it back, they complain, you replace a part. They call you and ask you how to do something, and you give them great service. But if you can't communicate with them, worst moment of misery. So understand your customer by, are you ready for this? Asking the extra question. The extra question allows you to communicate and understand what the customer wants. So they'll say something like, I need this quickly. And you respond by saying, how quickly? Don't just say yes, ask, how quickly? And when you understand how quickly is, then you know you can meet the expectation or discuss what that expectation is and manage it to where it's realistic. If somebody says, I need it quickly, and you say, how quickly? And they go, can I get it in 10 minutes? And you know it's going to take 2 hours. You don't say yes, walk away, and upset them by showing up more than, an hour and 50 minutes later. No, you say, well, let me tell you why I can't do it in 10 minutes. And you explain why, and you can, if you do it right, you can actually watch the customer's mind starting to shift and change gears, and they'll go, you know what? That sounds reasonable. Thanks for letting me know. Now I understand. And then you deliver. So the simple question. It's an extra question. I'll give you some funny examples of this. I love to talk about my wife when she's not around. But one night we were driving home, and I'll never forget, we stopped at the intersection, and there's Baskin Robbins just off to the left, and she looks at me and she says, honey, would you like to stop and get some ice cream? And I thought about it, and I looked back at her and I said, no. And then we drove home. And I realized rather quickly that when my wife said, honey, would you like ice cream? She wasn't asking me if I wanted ice cream. What she was saying is, I want ice cream. I don't even care if you want ice cream. Pull over, we're getting ice cream. She just phrased the statement in the form of a question. And if I would have been practicing what I'm talking about now, I would have asked the extra question. She would have said, would you like ice cream? And I would have said, no. Would you? And we would have had ice cream, when she would have said, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So that's what I mean by asking the extra question. Just a little bit of an extra understanding of what that customer's expectation really is. All right, let's talk about number 5 here, and that is what happens when there's a moment of misery. Moments of misery are going to happen. Customers are going to have complaints. And if you remember what we talked about earlier, when there is a complaint, we want our customer to tell us about it, so we have the opportunity to turn the moment of misery around and make it a moment of magic. So I have this 5-step process that manages just about any type of moment of misery. It can be a small little complaint, and it can even be a large, almost crisis-like experience. But you know what? If you manage it well, it's the same 5 steps. They're common sense, and unfortunately, they're not always so common. My suggestion is write these down, put them on a little card, and place it near your phone or somewhere, because when you get into a situation, when you have a moment of misery, these are the simple steps you want to take. Number 1 is acknowledge the problem. Now, that's simple. Hey, I understand why you're calling me. I understand why you're upset. I would be upset about that if it happened to me as well. So that's number 1. Number 2, apologize for the problem. I'm really sorry that happened. Now, by the way, you can apologize first and acknowledge second. I don't care, as long as these two happen at the very beginning. And I'm going to give you an example of all this in just a moment. Number 3 is fix what needs to be fixed. Number 4 is to have an attitude of ownership. Act like, hey, it came my way. I'm here to take care of you. It may not have been my fault, but it is now my opportunity. By the way, in certain businesses, you may have to pass this customer to somebody else, but it's the way that you do it that will still make that customer feel that they connected with you and that you owned that experience. And number 5, act with urgency. So acknowledge, apologize, fix it, or at least discuss what the resolution is going to be. Act as you own it. And number 5, act with urgency. Get it finished as quickly as you can. So let me give you a very basic example. I was having dinner with a few friends, and we all ordered salads. And by the way, the server started out bad experience. I had a feeling this was not going to be a great evening from the standpoint of the server taking care of us. So the salads come out, and they all come down on our table, and I look at the gentleman's next to me, my friends, and his is like a half a salad. Everybody else has a beautiful plate of salad, and he looks at ours and looks at his, and then he says to the server, excuse me, but what happened to the other half of my salad? It must have fallen off. And this is what the server says. Hey, I don't make them, I just serve them. And I thought to myself, did I just hear what I thought he heard? This is the exact opposite of what we're talking about here. My friend looks at me and says, Shep, looks like you're going to be able to write an article about this evening. And I said, yes, I will. So here's what happened. That server didn't do, well, I guess he did acknowledge there was a problem when he looked down and he said, you know, I don't make them, I just serve them. But what happened is, number 1, there was acknowledgement. Number 2, there was no apology. Number 3, there was no discussion of the resolution. It wasn't like, let me take this back and take care of it. Number 4, he didn't own the experience like it was his fault. It may not have been his problem, but it was his opportunity. No, on the other hand, what he did is he actually, by saying what he said, he blamed the people in the back and threw them under the bus for not making a full plate of salad. And number 5, there was no urgency because he didn't act at all. So let's break it down 5 steps. Remember, you acknowledge, you apologize, you fix it, you own it, you act with urgency. If this person would have been a good server, all this server would have had to have done is said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't notice that when I set it down. I am so sorry. There's your acknowledgement. There's your apology. Next is the resolution. Tell you what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to run him back. I'm going to get you another salad right away. That's the resolution. And at the same time, number 4, ownership. He didn't blame anybody, or she didn't blame anybody in the back. No, I will get taken care of for you right away. And by the way, right away is an act of urgency. So in that one sentence, oh my gosh, or a couple of sentences, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't notice this. I'm going to go back and get you another salad. I'm going to do it right away. Took care of all 5 of those. Those 5 steps were there. Remember, acknowledge, apologize, fix it, own it, and act with urgency. Number 6, consistency. Everything we've talked about is an all-the-time thing. You can't be good one day, great the next day, just okay the day after that. It's always. Remember, I talked about this at the beginning. We're always knowledgeable. We're always friendly. We're always helpful. We always respond quickly. That word always followed by something positive. So I want you to think of consistency in different ways. Number 1, it's consistency in the product, the quality of the product or the service that you sell. Customers can count on it. They know what they're going to get. Number 2, the level of experience they have is consistent. They can always count on it. That's where that word always comes in again. And then number 3, I want you to think about this. If the customer called you one day and then they talked to somebody else another day, what's that experience going to be like? Personalities, it's totally cool to have different personalities, but we want that customer to have that same consistent experience regardless of who they talk to. So when the customer refers to us, they won't say Bob or Sally on the inside of the company is great. They will say, the customer will say, they are a wonderful company to do business. Whenever I talk to anybody over there, it's a great experience. So it's consistency at those different levels. And finally, number 7, this is a cool one, and we can all do it. Just say thank you. Show appreciation. Say thanks, talk to the customer, make sure they're happy, find out if you're doing a good job. If you're not, fix it. But that's all part of the appreciation process. I was 12 years old, and I did a birthday party magic show, and I'll never forget. It was on a Wednesday afternoon. My mom picked me up from school, took me over to this house. I entertained about 20 some odd little screaming 6-year-old kids. I came home, and my mom said to me, "What are you going to do after dinner?" I thought, because it was a school night, that I would do my homework. And she said, "Not before you write a thank you note." And that was my first lesson in customer service. Show appreciation to the customers. My dad, by the way, said, "Hey, that's a great idea. Here's what I want you to do. Write the thank you note. A week later, call back and thank the customer again." Great idea. And that's when you get to ask, "Hey, were you happy? Is there anything else I could have done?" And that's your opportunity to serve even more. It's your opportunity to get feedback and find out if you're doing a good job. Find out what you could have done better. Find out what they loved about, in this case, the magic show. But it's all part of building that relationship and showing that you appreciate your customer. So that's the presentation today. And here's what I want to do. Just to reiterate, we talked about the concept that our customers are smarter than ever before. They compare us now to the best service they ever had. We talked about moments of truth, and those moments of truth go 3 different ways: moments of misery, moments of mediocrity, and moments of magic. Anything that's better than average. It can be over the top, blow me away, but most of the time it's just consistently better than average. That concept of amazement comes from that, just being predictably and consistently above average. That's when your customers say, "Wow, they're amazing." The 7 strategies and tactics that I share with you is: number 1, manage the first impression. Number 2, demonstrate knowledge of your business as well as knowledge of your customer. Number 3, act like an owner or a leader. Number 4, communicate and ask the extra question. Number 5, manage the moments of misery with that 5-step process. Acknowledge, apologize, fix it, own it, and act with urgency. Number 6 was all about consistency, so that our customers have that consistent and predictable experience. And finally, number 7, say thank you. Show appreciation. And speaking of appreciation, I'm at the end of my presentation, and I want to express my appreciation for the opportunity to present these ideas to you today. Thank you for taking the time, not only for this presentation, but also for attending the Customer Fest Show 2021. I'm Shep Hyken, wishing you health, safety, and that you'll always be amazing.